Welcome to No Flipping Excuses with Jason Lucchesi. Jason Lucchesi was the guy voted least likely to succeed by his high school peers. Today, Jason's a real estate flipping ninja Jedi Knight assassin who's taken his drive, street smarts, and never give up attitude and converted them into a real estate flipping business and freedom-based lifestyle. Here to share the truth about flipping houses, finding sellers, delivering buyers, real estate investing without the reality show hype, and all-around general business badassery. Your host, Krav Maga enthusiast, husband and father of 3, Jason Lucchesi.
Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Jason Lucchesi, and welcome to the No Flipping Excuses show. I've got a really good friend of mine that's joining us today to go over real estate and to give you the content that you need to go out there and get the results that you desire. I'm sure you heard of this guy. He's come out with several best-selling books. He's the individual that's known for the 1,000 houses. And he could talk to you a little bit more about that because we've got some awesome stuff in store here. If you don't know Mitch Stephen is here with us today, and we're going to be talking about raising private capital. But before we do that, Mitch, let's talk about you. For folks that don't know you, or if they've been living under a rock for a long time now, let's talk a little bit about you. I know you've come out with some crazy killer books. And are you coming out with number 4 now, right?
I'm coming out with number 4. It's not out yet, but it'll be out soon. I wrote a series of books called My Life in 1,000 Houses, and the first one was unexpected, unintended, never planned to write a book, but something tragic happened, and I didn't know it at the time, but I was sitting down to catalog my life, and it ended up being a book that changed my life. And then people started asking me, how in the world do you find so many houses? And so I wrote 200 plus ways to find bargain properties. And then later I wrote a book I really wanted to write, which was The Art of Owner Financing, which is what I do is I buy houses with OPM and then I sell them on installments, or I sell them by taking a down payment and collecting payments for 30 years. So I wrote about that because I do an awful lot of that.
Yeah.
Last year we bought 88 houses, and I owner financed 62 of them.
Oh wow.
I retailed 24 of them, and I wholesaled 2 of them. So I usually like to be up over 100, but the competition's been really stiff. There's a guru on every corner, and everybody who watches flip that house as a house flipper for at least 6 months. So but we decided not to, and plus the real estate markets are just really hot. The prices you're having to adjust to higher prices, and we decided that we weren't going to follow that curve all the way up to the top because we feel like it's coming back down sometime in the near future, and we don't want to be upside down on any houses. So we just decided to buy less houses and stay with good deals.
Oh, absolutely. Sure. Absolutely. And we had Mitch actually come up to Indianapolis here, and he spoke at our Indianapolis Real Estate Investors Association. And man, he really put on a show for our folks. He gave away a ton of knowledge, ton of wealth to folks. And I know some folks started implementing your strategies, and they're starting to see the results from that. So Mitch has been around the game for a long time. Luckily, we've been friends, and we've been doing things off and on with each other for years now. And luckily, I was able to get him booked on this podcast. He also has a podcast, which we'll talk about at the end of the show. I've been on it a couple of times, and Mitch has a really, really great show as well. You can never have too many podcasts like this, especially from folks that are actually doing the business. So Mitch, with that being said, I know you gave a little bit of insight on folks knowing more about you, but why do you think private money is so important for a real estate investor to really get their hands on in today's market?
Well, it really doesn't matter what strategy you're using. You're going to need capital. And if you're just running on your own capital, you're eventually going to run out. It doesn't really even matter how much money you have.
Yep.
I say that. There's always a case study where you just can't run out of somebody's money. But for the average person, you're going to run out of money. So using private money's changed. It's the difference between private money is the difference between making a great living and being a multi-millionaire.
Oh yeah.
Multi-millionaire, because you can't, there's no limits when you have endless supply of funding. There's no limits to how many houses you can buy, how many you can buy, how fast. So, the most I ever bought in 1 year was 150 houses. I like this. I'm more comfortable just right around 100.
Yeah.
But as your infrastructure and your systems get in place, you can start to take on more. The first time I sold 150 houses, I should have just sold 70 because all the money was coming in the front door and then it was going out the back door. So because I hadn't got the right systems in place.
Yeah.
So private money is key because it's fast. It doesn't ask any questions. It has no limits. You can negotiate different colors of the money, which would, there's different strategies. For instance, a quick flip or a wholesale needs a completely different kind of money than a long-term buy and hold or an owner finance deal where you're going to wrap the note. So,
yeah.
And I don't know, I make a lot of friends when I'm selling private money because you're really helping people solve a problem. That's one of the things we try to teach is quit begging for money. These people need you horribly. They've got their money sitting around in less than 1% CDs at the bank. It's not even keeping up with inflation. And then you're offering, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10% or more. And you're securing it with a real piece of property. Let's just think about that for a minute. Securing it with a real piece of property. If everybody in Bernie Madoff's pyramid scheme, which was $80 billion that private people lost, $80 billion. If every one of them would have had a $100,000 house for every $65,000 they gave to him, or even every $70,000 or $80,000 they gave to him, none of them would be broke. Not one. Not one of them. They'd all probably be better off than they were.
Right.
So that's what I offer. I offer to pay people 8% money, interest only for 5 years, or sometimes amortizing, depends on the person. And I pledge a house as collateral, and you either get or you get. You either get paid the interest rate we agreed on, or you get my house, which is probably a lot more lucrative than getting paid the interest rate. So, but here's the disclaimer. If you're planning on getting one of my houses, don't, because I've never given a house up in 1,500 houses in my career. I've never had a foreclosure. I've never handed a house back. It's never happened.
Yeah.
So far. Knock on wood. Knock on wood, Jason.
So the book title should change now to my life and 1,500 houses, because I know it keeps climbing with you.
It keeps changing, but you got to pick something to stick with. I mean, after you've done 1,000 houses, you should at least know what's up. It doesn't matter anymore, and that's the only reason I bring it up. There's always a bigger guy on the block. There's always someone down the road that did 2,000 houses last year in 1 year. There's always a bigger guy, and I'm very well aware of some of those guys. It's not the point to brag about how many houses I did. It's really just to impress on people that I've done it enough times to know how it works and how you get burned and how you stay on the smooth road, Oh
yeah, for sure. Now, Mitch, when you started your career and you obviously realized, at a point that you needed private money, what made you shift to that mentality? Like, hey, my business is going a certain way, but now I need to shift gears here if I want to scale my business, and I need to start getting some private capital raised. When did that realization come about?
I can tell you how it happened for me. It might be different for different people, but first I went out there in the world, and my dad loaned me $25,000, and I almost lost it, but I got it back. I got conned, and then I conned the con man back.
Oh, jeez.
Got it back, which was really fun. So meet my cat, everybody.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so there may be some meowing going on here. Hey, welcome to my life. So then he ran out of money pretty fast. I mean, there wasn't a lot. There was one thing, and he was just helping me out. He's probably as scared as I was.
Oh yeah.
And then I started borrowing money on my credit cards, and I had good credit, so I ended up getting 45 credit cards that had zero interest or very low interest, and I was buying houses on credit cards. And in that time, I was buying houses, creating notes, and selling the note all in the same room. I was doing like triple transactions or very close to that. Maybe I was buying the house, creating the note, and then in 30 days I was selling it, or 60 days. But anyways, it was a fast turnaround. It's not that way today, but and then I found a money partner. It was 18% and $2,000 kicker on every deal.
Oh, wow.
But I was still making big money. because I didn't have these houses but 30 days, 60 days.
Yeah.
So, I was still making $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 a transaction despite that, which is a great lesson in investing. It's not about the cost of the money all the time. More often than not, it's about the availability.
Sure.
Because I would rather have paid the 18% in the $2,000 kicker than to have made no money at all.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And then you come to the conclusion that that's an awful lot of money, and you just start feeling around like, hey, can I pay you 12%, or anybody just want 12% interest only? And then you started finding some of that. The problem with the big numbers, and you think that you would find more people if you offer higher rates of return. What happens is you scare the hell out of everybody and they run from you.
I was just going to ask you that.
You're shaking your head like because
oh yeah,
you walk up to an old timer or a rancher or somebody that has a couple $1 million in the bank because they just sold their ranch or part of their ranch, or they just got an oil lease or something down here in Texas.
Yeah.
And you tell them you want to pay them 14 or %, it's done, because they think nobody pays 14%.
Right.
This is a scam.
Right. So that's a great point that you bring up, and I don't mean to cut you off, but what made you have that realization as well? Like I know for me, and it's obviously different for others out there though, do you just kind of feel them out to see what number they're comfortable with, and then you go back to them? I know you said 8% now, but you had to probably get to a certain point to do that with your folks and establish relationships. But for somebody just starting off,
what happened was I got some 12% money, and then but that was a little high, so I was still feeling around for 10. Then I leveled on 10 for a long time. I created my whole career for the first 15 years of my life, or about that. I survived off 10% money, whether I was trying to get the person selling me the property to owner finance it to me, or whether I was trying to get a private lender. I was paying 10%. It worked. It worked for a long time. But what happened was I got so much 10% money, I couldn't hardly keep it out. And so then I thought, well, I don't need any more 10% money. I'm going to start asking when people talk to me, new people, because I don't want to change the game on my old people. I don't want to go back and renegotiate with the ones that were giving me 10. I'm going to leave them alone. They've been good to me. I'm not going to retrade with them because it just feels bad.
Yeah,
There's nothing wrong with it, but it feels bad. And so all the new people I started talking to about 8%. Well, today, and as I started to get the 8% money, I quit spending I spend the 8% money first, and I wouldn't spend the 10%. Well, people's 10% money started staying in their wallet, and they were asking me, how come you're not getting my money out? And they said, are you still buying houses? I said, yeah, I'm buying more houses than I ever have. And they said, how come you're not using my money? I said, well, I got people that started loaning me money at 8%. And as a business owner, I have to do what's right for my business. If you were in my business, would you borrow 8% money first, or would you borrow 10% money first? I mean, it's a non-decision, really. I feel bad about it for you, but I mean, money is so cheap for so long these days that people started saying, if you could get my money out, I could do better than 10. And I thought, well, what do you want to do? They said, well, I'll do 8. Well, then all kinds of people started showing up with 8. So I said, and they said, well, if we give it to you at 8, will you go down? I said, I was never going to call you and ask you that, but if that's what you want, I'll get your money out first, because you were in my life before they were ever in my life.
Sure.
And so then I worked every single 10% person, finally, eventually made that call to me, and we were able to have that conversation.
Wow.
Very, very humble and apologetic and grateful that what they did. But what would you do? If you had $10 million at 10%, or you had $10 million at 8%, which one are you going to borrow?
Gosh. Yeah.
You have no choice.
Yeah,
no matter if you're being a good businessman.
Right.
So everybody went down to 8%. Now today I'm working on 6 to 8% money. And you say, well, because I don't know. If you go too low on the interest rate, then they're always shopping you.
Sure.
If someone charges me too much, I'm shopping them. 8% seems to be like nobody's shopping anybody. It's not horrible. It's not great, but it's fair.
Yeah.
And you get comfortable with it. It works really good. But I started throwing it because literally I cannot spend all the money. I have $12 million in 8% money. And I even had to start a hard money loan company to get the money out so that people wouldn't leave me.
Oh, wow. Nice.
So I have $6 million out on the streets of San Antonio right now with not one penny of advertising, just because if I don't put the money somewhere, they'll drift off. And half the time when my private lenders drift off and then I call them and say, I'm ready to use your money, they have lost the money. I'm not saying that they placed it someplace else. They lost it because they don't know what to do with the money.
Sure.
And they loan it to Uncle Fred for a snow cone factory in Alaska. And they don't know it's lost yet, but I know it's lost.
That's
you know,
too funny.
Well, he's going to pay me back. He was supposed to pay me back last month, but yeah, I know what's happening. You ain't getting paid back.
Right.
So, but now I'm doing now when people ask me, well, what do you pay? I'm starting to say 6 to 8. They go, what's the difference in the 6 and the 8? And I said, well, if I'm borrowing money from you and I'm only borrowing 50% or less of the collateral, that's a 6% loan. If I'm borrowing 50% or more, that's an 8% loan. Because you can understand at less than 50%, there's no risk in this for you. So you got to make a little. An interest rate is a reflection of risk and reward, right?
Right.
And I'm just testing the market with that now. Can I find people that say, I'd rather have the 6% money because I want to be that solid. You know what I mean? I want to be that conservative is the word. I want to be that conservative. And I'm finding out there are people like that say, I don't want the 8%. I want the 6%. Find me the houses. What's really cool is I can buy a house for like 55 and I can put like 6,000 of my own money in and only borrow 49. And I can actually buy down my rate 2 points with my own money.
That's huge.
But it's not even really a buy down because I paid down equity. I mean, I didn't lose that money. It's still equity in my house. So I'm starting to pick up some 6% money because surprisingly enough, I thought I was going to have to explain to people why they were only going to get 6% on this deal. And there are people coming to me that saying, I only want the 6% deals. I don't want the 8% deals.
Right. And the cool thing too today, especially Mitch, is I don't think I've ever seen a higher amount of availability as far as capital out there today. Have you seen it? Have you seen anything like this before? I know you've been doing this longer than I have. I started in 2008, but it's just crazy. There's so much capital out there from investors that they just want to deploy it as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I've never seen so much money, and what did they say? I forget. Right in one town, in one IRA administrator's office, he said he had $240 million of his clients' money sitting idle.
Oh my goodness!
That was in one office in Dallas.
Oh my gosh!
that his clients that off the top of his head he knew for sure there was at least 240 million just like sitting there.
Oh my gosh, that you could do a lot with that.
But it's across the nation. It's in the billions.
It is.
So a little, I don't want to pray for a shakeup in the stock market, but a little shakeup in the stock market would be a boon. I actually, the owner finance strategy that I specialize in does very well in the recession because I'm the only guy open for business. And you ask, why is it so important? So this is the crux to the answer. When the recession hit, either the banks caused it because they clammed up or the banks clammed up because of the recession. But either way, the banks clammed up.
Yeah.
Well, when you have private money, you don't need a bank to buy houses. But you still have a problem because a lot of people that are buying your houses have bank relations or they need a bank to buy your house. Well, I'm selling with owner financing, so I don't need a bank to sell my house. So in the recession, I'm the only guy open for business. And my banker calls me all the time and he says, why don't you just let me loan you all that 12% or that $12 million at 8%? Why don't you let me loan it to you at 4% or 4.5%? And you could make all that spread that you're losing with the private guys. And I said, it sounds really good, but as soon as there's a bump in the road, you guys are going to close down and shut me off and cut my limits. And then I'm going to be out of business. And those people those years that it took me to build that $12 million, they're going to be gone. And I'm going to be out of business when the recession hits. I'm going to keep a very healthy balance between bank money and private money. So this is how it might go. Like last quarter, I did this for real. I had borrowed $1.8 million from my private lenders to buy 35 houses.
Yep.
I sold those 35 houses for 3.6 million. And they still owe me 3.2 million on the payments that they owe me on their amortization.
Yeah.
And I went to the bank and said, I want this 1.8 million refinanced because I borrow money at 8% interest only, 5 years, non-recourse, collateral only.
Yeah.
And so I sell my houses on 30-year fixed notes. So I got a balloon problem, right? Or you would think I do. There's a lot of ways out of this.
Oh, yeah,
on my blog, 1000houses.com, look up why I borrow at the terms I do. And I wrote 4 pages on why and how, all the ways to get out of it and the worst case scenario. But anyways, so when I went to pick these 35 notes out of my whatever 250, 300 portfolio, I had to be very careful not to wipe any one person's portfolio out.
Yeah.
You know, I would look at the portfolio and go, this person has 20 loans with me. I'm going to take 5 of his or 4. You know, this person only has 3. I'm only going to take 1. However, I might look at that person with 3 and say, this person lives on this interest and lives a very dangerously modest lifestyle. They can't afford to take a cut and pay. I'm not going to take any of hers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
Can't afford it. So I'm also looking at, does the person need the interest from these notes, or are they independently wealthy besides this?
Right.
And so I had to go through and hand pick these notes so that no one person got hurt, or that I didn't drive anybody away. So what happened is the bank refinanced that $1.8 million that was at 8% interest only. They refinanced it, and I pledged my notes as collateral. It's called hypothecating the note. I learned a new word from a banker. I've been teaching them words for years. I finally learned one from them. Hypothecating the note is when you pledge the note that's owed to you, you know, payments that are owed to you.
Yeah.
You pledge that as collateral for a loan. So I pledged the 35 notes as a loan for 1.8 million, and they reduced my rate to 4.22%.
Nice.
And they did a 15-year AM with a 10-year balloon, which most of those notes won't make it 10 years. They'll pay off naturally. And it was floating rate, but I will not enter any situation where I do not know the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
And so I negotiated a cap, and I have a 6.5% cap on the rate. And if I sell houses, there's a formula that, you know, I can get some of the money. As long as I stay at the ratio that I was when I got the loan, the loan to value, as long as I stay within that, I get all the extra money if I sell houses.
Oh, nice.
But here's a cool thing. I didn't have to get any appraisals on all those houses, because guess what? I wasn't doing a real estate loan. I was pledging my personal property as collateral. They're called notes. I was pledging my notes. And they found a little loophole. Now, some of the banks that I talked to didn't want to do that. They still wanted to charge me $8,000 for appraisals, you know, $450.
Oh, geez.
You know, 400, maybe more, $450 times 35 houses, whatever that is. It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And then the other banks just go, you know, technically this isn't a real estate loan. We don't have a loan on real estate. We're getting a note. It's a personal loan.
Right.
It's a different asset class. So they were able to escape that requirement. And so by doing that, I changed my cash flow $80,000. I'm sorry. I upped my income $80,000 a year. However, my cash flow stayed about the same. It changed only $100, my cash flow, because I was at 8%, but interest only, but at 4.22, I was amortizing. So on my financials, I realized an extra $82,000 gain in principal reduction, but my cash flow didn't hardly change at all. It changed $100, and I don't remember if it was up or down. I think it was down $100.
Right. And for most folks too, is, you know, you got to think when Mitch was going from an interest only payment to a 15-year, he's got to add into that now principal plus interest for folks that are unaware of that. And Mitch, let me ask you this. You know, when you were getting started and, you know, you're at 12 million now in capital that you've raised, what were some things that really helped you to find these folks that you could give away to some of our listeners that are on here right now? Like, what would you say are some really good sources?
Well, we just did a private money course, my partner and I, on how to raise private money, because had helped a lot of people raise private money that my students and stuff that I'd had over the years. And one of the biggest problems, one of the biggest obstacles in the world is the person thinks it's about them. Like my partner, for instance, Mike, when I found him, or when we ran into each other, he was 24 years old.
Yeah.
And he had done really well in his warm market. His mom and his dad and his uncle, but they were tapped now. They didn't have any more. So he was having to call on strangers now. And I have a whole long list of strangers that you can call on, and they're all got about the same chance of saying yes as the other one. And so he went out, but he was calling on a couple, but he wasn't calling on a lot of them, and he wasn't putting up the numbers. And I'm saying, look, you're not going to get more money if you don't call on more people. You've only called on 2 people, and like, you're not calling on anybody else. And
right.
I said, what's the problem? And then I finally figured out what his limiting belief was. His limiting belief was, I'm too young. I'm 24 years old. I just got out of college. I don't even own my own house. Well, I'm going to these people that are in their 60s and their 70s, their 80s that are very successful. Why in the hell are they going to loan a 24-year-old kid money who has no track record? And I said, okay, let me tell you why. It says, first of all, you're making it way too much about you. No one gives a crap about you. Charles Manson should be able to go out and get this up, no matter how many murders he committed.
Oh, man.
Because it's not about you. It's about the collateral. You need to quit worrying about you and your credit and your track record and start showing them how much that house is worth. And if you don't pay them, this is what you get.
Yeah.
And when they say, well, what about you? You say, I can tell you all about me you want. I'll give you my social. I have good credit and everything. You can look at me all you want to, but it doesn't do you any good. You're either going to get paid by me or you're going to get this house. You need to be looking at this house.
Yeah.
You need to look at this house. It doesn't matter who I am. And if this house isn't good enough as a plan B, which is really better than plan A financially.
Right.
I'm offering you 8% interest and I need $60,000 on a $100,000 house. You're going to do a lot better if you get my house, And so once the light bulb went off for him, his very next call, he talked to someone he didn't know that was exactly the scenario that he said, much older, much more successful. The guy asked him about his age and his credit and wanted to know social, and he just answered exactly how I told him to answer. And the guy said, you're right, I'll do it. I mean, and Mike's biggest problem after that was going, really?
Yeah.
That was his. He had to keep from going, are you sure? But then the next thing is confidence. It only takes one person to tell you yes, and you just get 10 foot tall and bulletproof.
Yep.
Because that wall has been shattered. It's like remember the 4-minute, you may not remember, you guys are younger than me, but a guy broke the 4-minute mile.
Oh, yeah.
Finally. I can't remember his name. And then, but
Roger Bannister.
Roger Bannister had tried for years to break that 4-minute marker.
Yep.
And they couldn't. But do you remember the day he broke it? In the weeks after that, more people started breaking it right and left.
Yes.
Because the mental block had been overcome. And so that's what happens in the private money. Once you get one, it's over.
Yep.
It's over. It's a matter of confidence and you start to walk with a little different, swagger.
Yeah, you totally do.
And so it's about confidence. So it's not just about confidence after you get the one. What we're doing in the course is we got to give them a lot of confidence to just go out and even approach the people. So when you know the answers to the 20 objections, when you know the 7-step process, when you know how to ask them questions or say things to them that will get them to ask you or to get involved in the conversation in a room that you want to be in.
Yeah.
How do you say this? There's certain output that I've discovered that when I put this out to them, there's a 90% chance they're going to come back with what I want, which will open the door to the conversation that I really want to be in. And the best thing that ever happens in this little 7-step process is that if it all goes perfect, which it does a lot of times,
yeah,
you don't ever ask them for money. They ask you, how can I be one of those guys that gets the 8%? They
Right.
ask you, and that's the whole plan. My whole plan is like, don't ask anyone for money. Let's show a business plan and start to get their business on this their opinion on this business plan. But before it's over, they're going to ask me, where are you getting that money? And then it's going to open. Then there's some responses, and you open up the door, and pretty soon it's like, can I loan money and get that kind of return with that kind of collateral?
Right.
And it just floors you. I had a guy write me the other day. He said, it's unbelievable that like 90% of the time, when I put out what you tell me to put out, they respond almost like we're canned as humans. Like if I ask you, hey, Jason, what do you do for a living? You're going to tell me what you do.
Yeah.
And then I just shut up. What are you eventually going to ask me?
What you do.
Yeah, it's easy as pie, man. So that's what I'm saying. So if you figure out about 5 sentences like that in the pitch, and you just keep, and then if they don't ask you what I do, if they don't ask me what I do for a living, I prod them to ask me.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I don't like what I'm doing. I thought maybe I should have done something like what you do. What does that beg? It begs the question. Well, what do you do?
Yeah, exactly.
You know? So if they don't ask you, can I borrow you money? Or I have ways to just finally. It's so in their face that they can't hardly help but ask it. But they're asking you if they can loan you money. Not are you, because when you ask someone, hey, I want to talk to you about borrowing money, they're like this. You know, they get in the boxing position, right?
They do.
But yeah,
they totally do. And the great thing too is what you were just talking about is I love the analogy, especially when you're talking to folks and just, you know, you got to shut up and be quiet. I always tell folks, you've got to look at it from a doctor's perspective. And I know we're not doctors, but if somebody comes into a doctor's office, the doctor's going to be like, okay, I know what the problem is without you even talking. That does not happen. You go to the doctor, you explain what's going on. The doctor listens to your problems and then gives you a solution. That works the same exact way in our business. Instead of selling benefits to people all the time, we need to become problem solvers. Once that happens, everything just melts away and becomes so much easier from a selling standpoint.
Yeah, I'll go further in that example. Like, so I love it when the stock market, I don't want to sound cynical, but when the stock market has a hard time, it crashes. I mean, I really pay attention to that day. It's like I can't wait to go out that day because the stock market's really having a hard time. It just took a blow.
Yeah.
Because everyone I meet, I go, strangers, anyone who's nice dressed with a Rolex, say somebody, I find a way to get next to them at the coffee shop or in the elevator or whatever, and I say, man, did you see that? Did you see what happened to the stock market today? And within 2 seconds, you can see on their face if they're affected or not. I mean, they're like, they go, yeah, and they, you know, you say, you can just know that guy had some money in the stock market, a lot. It looks like from the look on his face, he had a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then I say, I'm so glad I got out of live. I'm so glad I don't have to live by that ticker tape anymore.
Right.
You know, I found a whole different way to do it, and I don't live by that ticker tape. And I feel sorry for you. I hope you didn't lose much, brother. You don't have to live by that ticker tape if you don't want to. There's another way.
Yeah.
And then, bam.
Yeah.
He wants to know.
They want to know.
Well, what are you doing? I don't know. Let's have a cup of. I'll buy you a cup of coffee. You buy me a cup of coffee. I'll tell you about it.
Yeah.
You know what? It's really important who buys coffee. If I'm buying coffee, he's doing me a favor. If I tell him, okay, you buy me coffee, I'll tell you about it. I'm doing him a favor.
Yep. Exactly.
So it's a lot of psychology, and I didn't study psychology. I didn't go to college. But I just learned what works, and I've learned ways to. If I want someone to ask me a question, I figure out how do I get people to ask me that question, and I spend a lot of time on it. But now it's getting easier because there's kind of a, I don't know, like songwriting or poetry writing. There's kind of a rhythm that you figure out.
Oh yeah.
And so I figured out this rhythm, and I can get people to ask me almost anything I want to because I kind of solved how you do it. So now I just made it real easy for you. I just put them all in for you, and you know when I tell you ask them what they do for a living and then shut up, and then if they don't ask you what you do, then you know there's another sentence that'll get them closer to it. And then when they finally ask you, what do you do for a living? You gotta know what your elevator pitch is. I help average people achieve above average rates of return on their idle money, and I give them very valuable Texas real estate as collateral.
That's a great elevator pitch for sure. And most folks don't understand how to do that. Right there, Mitch just laid it down for you and gave you a perfect elevator pitch that was actually less than 8 seconds. That's kind of the rule, 8 seconds or less. Mitch nailed that in about 5 seconds.
I actually practiced it on a real elevator.
Oh, nice. Nice.
I says, well, let's call the elevator pitch. Let's see how many times I can do this before the doors open.
Yeah. Man, if you get that out in 5 seconds, people are definitely perk up and want to know what the heck's going on. So
there's a lot of little tricks to it that make it so much easier. So the point of the whole course was, in the beginning, one is just to explain how to pitch it. 2 is get comfortable with all the things that might happen when you do pitch it. Like, what are all the objections? How do you go through step by step? You got PowerPoints where I'm pitching it, but then there's also a PowerPoint with no audio, so that when you get good enough, you can use it yourself and not have to use me as a handicap. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And then there's just so many little minutia things. People say, "Man, you make this look so easy." I said, I started to try to figure out, like, why is it so easy? Because it really is not hard. You pitch to 25 people. I bet you can't make it to 12 without getting money.
Yeah, exactly. I would agree.
But that's the main issue right there. I can do everything in the world, but if you're not going to put up the numbers, it's not going to work. If you're only going to talk to 4 people, I can't tell you what's going to happen. But I can tell you this. This is my challenge. I challenge you to give this pitch to 50 people 50 people. My challenge is, I challenge you to get 50 no's in a row. You can't get 50 no's in a row.
Yeah, I highly doubt it.
Some people say 50, that's nothing. Other people say 50, that's a lot of people. Usually what happens is, if someone's in sales, 50 is nothing. If no one's ever been in sales, 50 is big.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And so whether it's nothing or it's big, my response is the same. So standing between you and being a multi-millionaire is 50 appointments. How do you want to be an investor or not? I mean, explain it to me, because that's not very much to ask of any person in the world.
No. To
become a multi-millionaire and gain control of your financial future.
Yep.
That's nothing.
No, I agree.
There's people that have lived their whole life doing way worse things than that didn't even make any money.
Right.
To speak of.
No, that's true.
Think about the miners and the people that just bust their ass every day, and they're not going to get rich. Right. They're going to wear out before they even get to retirement.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate thing. Yeah, that's the cold hard truth right there. No, Mitch, this has been a great episode, man. I really appreciate you joining us. Now, a couple of different things I wanted you to share with folks is how can they find out more about the 3 books that you have out? I know you were generous enough to gift them to me when I was a guest on your podcast, and I truly appreciate it. Those books are phenomenal, and I want to get our people to your site so they can get them for themselves as well.
You just go to 1000houses.com and look up on the tab that says Mitch's Books. I think there's even a chance to get the first 100 pages of my first book for free.
Oh, that's awesome.
And you can check it out there. I have an awful lot of free stuff. A lot of people chastise me. They say, you give away the farm. I say, well, I'm one person. I'm not a mill house. If people are interested, it'll work out. And if they're not interested, I'm not worried about it.
Yeah.
So if I can help some people, if you can do this on your own without anybody's help, and there's probably 2 or 3% that can, because I give that much information. But there's other people that, are smart enough to realize that even those 2% are paying the street because of things they overlooked.
Right. No, absolutely, Mitch. So 1000houses.com. Go check it out. Like Mitch said, I've been to the site before. We've published it out to our subscriber database, and people just love the site. They're able to gain so much valuable information. Plus, you could grab Mitch's books. You can get the first 100 pages of his first book absolutely free. And then also, too, Mitch has a really amazing podcast. Mitch, do you want to share a little bit about your podcast as well, my man?
Yeah, it's the reinvestorsummit.com. That's how you get to it. It's also on iTunes, but it's Real Estate Investor Summit podcast on iTunes. But it's just a lot easier to go to the website reinvestorsummit.com, and
Okay.
there I have like over 200 interviews archived. Here's several episodes, and I was going to ask my assistant what episode you're on, and let me see if she responded here real quick.
Yeah, I know I've been on 2 shows, and we've always had a blast.
It's episode number 51, at least, how to find and flip off-market deeply discounted properties. So it's episode number 51 at reinvestorsummit.com, and that's when I interviewed you.
Yep.
And there's another interview on there, but she didn't have it written down there.
No, that's awesome.
I have 250 interviews in the can total, so it's been a long couple of years, but it's really been worth it because I met a lot of neat people. I got to meet you through that.
Oh yeah,
yeah, just meet cool people, man.
Yeah, we got to meet through that podcast. I know we were doing some stuff for a while now. We've been working together, so it's been a great road. I highly recommend to our listeners right now, check out Mitch's site, 1000houses.com, and he also has reinvestorsummit.com where you can get in line with his podcast, and it's amazing. You need to go check out the podcast. But Mitch, any final words that you would like to leave with our listeners right now?
Yeah, just keep improving. Never stop improving. So whatever you have, whatever system you have, you always got to be trying to improve it. You're trying to improve your sales. You try to improve your marketing. You try to improve your ability to raise and find private money or improve your funding situation. You just never stop trying to improve.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times improvement is slow and painful, and don't think that it happens overnight. Allow yourself to fail at it for a while to figure out what works and doesn't work. Don't beat yourself up just because you went out and talked to a couple of people and it didn't work.
Yeah.
And then if you're really sure it's you, then maybe get some help, because every big step I ever took, I had to get someone who was already there to help me, and I had to pay him. There was no doubt about it. When I systematized my office, it cost me $30,000. But after failing 5 times at trying to do it myself, I finally went and got in a room with 40 people that were doing it, and they unwound me, and then they wound me back up. But here's the thing: I had to give myself up. I had to have faith in them and open up and quit and give up to them so that they could reprogram me. And then once I figured out that what I thought they were doing worked, I allowed them to reprogram me. And it's hard because I was used to doing the same thing over and over, which is why I was failing when I was trying to do it myself.
Yeah.
When you get in front of somebody says the reason why it's not working is you keep doing the same crap over and over again. You got to go completely over here to this thing. And every time I start to drift back over, they grab me and throw me back to the other side of the room. So I said, and then it starts to become nature. So I can say now that the last 300 houses I bought, I have not seen. And the last 300 people that bought my houses, I have not met nor talked to or even looked at their application.
Nice.
And so that allows me to do things like this now. Because, hey, Jason, what does an entrepreneur do when he frees up all his time?
He
goes and occupies it. He goes and occupies it again.
Nice.
He fills it up with the next venture. That's what he does.
That's awesome. No, that's awesome, man. I love it. That goes what you were talking about, the definition of insanity. That I've got that quote right behind me from Einstein. So that I love when you brought that up, because that's a good reminder to me. If I feel like I'm going around in circles, I always take a look at that. But no, Mitch, it's been awesome. I truly appreciate you being a guest on our show today. Again, this is Mitch Steven, folks. Make sure you head on over to 1000houses.com. And hey, if you enjoyed this episode that we are wrapping up right now with Mitch, make sure you become a subscriber if you are not a subscriber, and leave us a 5-star review. Mitch deserves it. I deserve it. And the myth, who you obviously do not see right now in camera, he definitely deserves it. He wore a Goonies shirt yesterday, so that's pretty cool. So make sure you become a subscriber, leave us a 5-star review, And make sure you stay tuned for our next upcoming episode where we're delivering you top content with the No Flipping Excuses Show. Thanks for joining us. Take care. Bye now.
Thanks for listening. For show notes and links to anything discussed on today's program, visit noflippingexcuses.com. If you'd like to call the show, dial 317-900-1307, 24/7. Leave a message with your first name and where you're calling from, and include your question, comment, or concern. Who knows? You might end up on the air with Jason Lucchesi. If you like the show, be sure to subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher. The links are posted at noflippingexcuses.com. Remember, you can close more deals now, make your own rules, and design and live an amazing life without having some jerk-off boss tell you what to do. Share noflippingexcuses.com with like-minded people you know who are ready for badassery, crushing it in real estate, and enjoying freedom to whatever you like, whenever you like it.